Good afternoon. The Public Safety Committee will now come to order. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Alderman Oldenburg.
Present.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard. Alderwoman Keys. Alderwoman Velasquez. Alderwoman Sanye.
Present.
Alderman Aldred.
Present.
Chair Narayan.
Here.
Here.
Alderwoman Keys. Alderwoman Velasquez. We have 5 present. We have quorum.
Thank you. At this point, I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of Thursday, September 19th, 2024.
Second.
Madam Clerk, it's been moved and seconded. Could you please call the roll?
Alderman Oldenburg.
Aye.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard.
Aye.
Alderwoman Keys. Alderwoman Velasquez. Alderwoman Sanye.
Aye.
Alderman Aldred.
Aye.
Chair Narayan.
Aye.
Alderwoman Keys. Alderwoman Velasquez. We have 5 aye votes.
All right. Thank you. With that, we have approved the minutes of Thursday, September 19th. I know, just looking out, that some folks are here to talk on Board Bill 2. At the request of the sponsor, Board Bill 2 has been removed from the agenda today. That doesn't mean that members of this committee don't want to hear from you on it. So I know I've talked to my colleague, Alderman Aldridge, and others, and at the conclusion of this meeting, we'll stick around and talk to you. That way, it just all works on our minutes, because there's not actually a place for it to go right now. So we're not trying to dodge you on it, just want to make sure that we're doing everything appropriately on this end. So with that, we will now move to Board Bill number 105. That's Alderwoman Boyd. You are recognized. You just sat down too. I apologize. Take your time, Alderwoman.
Make sure your mic on.
Oh yeah, and you might want
Board Bill number 105, introduced by Alderwoman Pamela Boyd. The proposed bill revises and updates ordinance number 71820, which pertains to the illegal discharge of firearms, to change the term weapon to firearm, change criminal negligence to recklessness, and updating exceptions to the prohibition and containing an emergency clause.
Thank you so much. I am honored to come before this committee with this bill because we finally got Governor Parson to sign off on the Blur's Law. We had submitted it earlier, and we knew that he was going to wind up revisiting it. So when he did, he revisited, we adjusted the changes and put it in this bill. And Casey is going to speak in tune from the mayor's office in tune in regards to the changes and updates that we have. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Come on forward.
Good afternoon, everyone. For the record, my name is Casey Milberg. I'm the Policy Director in Mayor Jones's office. First and foremost, thank you very much to Alderwoman Boyd for once again carrying this legislation update to it. Last spring, this group will remember that we passed this is trigger-style legislation in anticipation of Governor Parson signing this when it crossed the finish line. Prior to it crossing the finish line, but after passage, the state legislature did make a few changes that we do have to incorporate into this local ordinance. So that is what this bill does, is it just mirrors the changes made in state law. And those changes are in Section 1, it updates the name of the offense from unlawful discharge of a weapon to unlawful discharge of a firearm. So that's on page 1, lines 11 and 12. It additionally, in Section 1 on page 1, line 12, the criminal intent standard was updated from negligence to recklessness. We do have to update that because that is the burden of proof that rests on the government. In order to adjudicate a defendant guilty, they have to prove them beyond a reasonable doubt to have operated with the relevant mindset. So we do have to update the mental intent element accordingly. And then the next update is in section 2. The state legislature added in 2 additional categories of allowable defenses of justification. One pertaining to if an incident happens on a shooting range that's either that is indoor, owned, operated by the state or political subdivisions, is a commercial shooting range, and is supervised by any person 18 years of age or older. So that's on the bottom of page 1, top of page 2. And then the second additional defense of justification is if there's an imminent and ongoing animal attack, unless that defense is a great deviation from the standard of care that a reasonable person would exercise in similar circumstances. And so that is on the bottom of page 2. The final change in this is, you'll remember that we originally enacted this as trigger legislation. Because it is state law now, we do not need to have the trigger language in there. It is just something that we can formally codify into ordinance. So that's why we removed the trigger legislation and added in the standard emergency clause that you see. So I am happy to take any questions, whether it's about these changes or the original Blair's Law. I know it's been a minute since we passed it, so happy to talk about any of the provisions that are remaining unchanged as well.
Thank you so much. I'll open it up to members of the committee. Alderman Oldenburg, any questions? Alderwoman Clark Hubbard.
No question.
Alderwoman Keys is not here. Alderwoman Velasquez.
No questions, thank you.
Alderwoman Saunier.
I don't have any questions, but I do want to thank Alderwoman Boyd for her work on the bill, coming back and updating it, and thank the mayor's office too for your work on this bill. I look forward to supporting it today.
Thank you so much.
Alderman Aldridge.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk, or Mr. Clerk.
Getting a job upgrade.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee. So, like you say, last year we passed an ordinance that would have been, it was a trigger because at the time Blair's Law went into effect. So that means the board would have had to pass a resolution once Blair's Law actually was passed, but now we're not passing a resolution. We're repealing the old ordinance just to ensure that it's kind of not 2 pieces of legislation out there, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And thank you for bringing that up. I think that that's a great thing for us to drill into for everyone's benefit, because the language and provisions that were ultimately passed in state law did not mirror the original ordinance exactly. A resolution was not able to be passed in the board implementing it because of those differences. So now that we're coming back after the state has formally enacted its final version of this legislation, we no longer need to have that trigger legislation in it. It's not an ordinance on the books just yet. So we no longer need to have the trigger legislation. So we're swapping that out for the clause. So yeah, that's the interplay of that.
And then is the legislation we're passing today, is there any differences between this one and the state law that is passed?
Sure. The differences are in the kinds of punishments that we can implement. So in terms of the act and the mental state and those elements, we mirror the state law exactly, but state law does allow us a bit of flexibility in terms of how we implement punishments. And so the difference between the provisions of the state legislation, this one, are the state law is still something that law enforcement can charge if they want. That is a felony. What this is it says you can be charged, you can be sentenced to imprisonment or fine if you are an adult offender. If you are a minor, then state law requires us to leave that adjudication of a sentence to the courts. And then the other difference is if ultimately our local law enforcement prosecution choose to charge under this ordinance, that revenue, any revenue from any fines, goes directly into the Office of Violence Prevention instead of into the city's general revenue. The thinking on that was, and I know this is something that the Alderwoman has felt very passionately about, is, if we are as a city starting to move towards different ways of violence interruption and violence intervention, instead of dumping money into city revenue, let's dump it into a specific kind of violence prevention services so we can have fewer incidents like those that might be charged under this ordinance moving forward. So those are differences in terms of where that revenue source, where that revenue would be directed to, and then the kinds of charges that somebody might be assessed under this ordinance.
So on that first one, you say on the state level, it's a felony, and what we will be doing is making it either a punishment to jail or a fine, which most of the time judges give the discretion of a fine before they just throw them in. So it's a more softer approach than maybe a felony, which would be a little bit on someone's record that could stop them from, you
Yeah.
know.
It certainly allows a lot more flexibility for a wider range of circumstances. So for example, if, something that we have unfortunately seen happen in our city, it happens all across the state, but we certainly have seen in our city is individuals might take advantage of minors and, provide them with weapons, and then they could, be potentially prosecuted under this ordinance. So let's say if it's a minor and you're a first-time offender, this is your first brush, but you are charged under this, you're not going to immediately, get hit with a felony or something that might be a lot more punitive and may not recognize the unique circumstances of your situation. We want that flexibility. I mean, we certainly cannot override, the state law. And if in the discretion of, the prosecutor, they think a felony is appropriate in a certain circumstance, if you have a repeat offender, for example, then they can still charge under that. But for an example of a situation where if it's, like a first-time offender who's a minor, there is flexibility built within this ordinance to allow them to be treated a little bit differently in light of those circumstances.
Gotcha. Well, I like and then the third part, I like how we're using this opportunity to use some of those funding to go to the Office of Violence Prevention. They do a lot of great work. I think this board and Public Safety Committee has been very careful of not like over criminalizing individuals, but try to figure out how do we rehabilitate folks and, get to the root cause instead of just tacking on crimes on top of crimes, which ultimately they would probably be another repeat offender. So those are the questions I have, and unless my colleagues have objections, I would like to make this in bank.
No objections? All right, Madam Clerk, please, well, I guess we need to hold a vote on it anyway. Someone needs to second that.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Here, who second? It was two, so who second?
I believe Sonier seconded.
Okay.
So with that, we now have the Board Bill number 105 in bank here. I do have just a quick question, I think probably for Casey. If you can answer it, I'm happy to have you answer it, certainly.
She can answer.
So I know, I want to say it was on the board bill regarding the open carrying of guns. We had a discussion about what this board had the authorization to do in relation to minors.
Yes.
Does this thread that needle?
It does. So in the original version of the legislation, there's wording in the, let me see if I can grab the original legislation. We did build in the understanding that that has to be determined by the state legislature. So we pointed to that statute and had language saying pursuant to, and I forget the citation off the top of my head, but this does not change. This does not change that provision that we put into the original ordinance. So that still is in there.
Okay, awesome. That's the only question I had.
Yeah, it's a good one. It really is. I mean, that's important, and we don't want to overstep. And there's been a lot of changes in state law, and we, have to accommodate those. So thanks for asking that question.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And with that, Alderwoman Boyd, I'll recognize you to close.
Thank you so much for supporting this bill, and I look forward to working on the next one.
All right, with that, I will entertain a motion to pass Board Bill number 105 out of committee with a due pass recommendation.
I make a motion to pass Board Bill 105 out of committee with a due pass recommendation.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Alderman Odenberg.
Aye.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard. Alderwoman Keys. Alderwoman Velazquez.
Aye.
Alderwoman Sanye.
Aye.
Alderman Aldrich.
Aye.
Chair Narayan.
Aye.
Alderwoman Keys. We have 6 aye votes.
All right, with that, we have passed Board Bill number 105 out of committee with a due pass recommendation, and we will move on to 106. Alderman Oldenburg, you're recognized on Board Bill 106.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's my pleasure to introduce for your favorable consideration Board Bill 106. This is a board bill that's recommended and already approved by the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, that the city enter into a grant agreement with the Missouri State Department of Public Safety, which is a sub-award agreement from the Department of Justice for $130,985 to go under the Project Safe Neighborhoods initiative and grant. This is an annual grant that the city seeks reimbursement on and has since 2018-19, and it's the proceeds of which go to gang investigation training, various equipment upgrades and replacements, pole cameras, PTZs, acoustic gunshot detection units, and night vision equipment, which I assume is night vision binoculars. So pretty straightforward grant agreement. Happy to entertain questions. I have Sergeant Silva here from the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department to answer any questions related to technology and how this grant agreement helps with the technology the St. Louis Police Department uses. Also, Casey Milberg from the Mayor's Office, if there's any technical questions regarding the grant and the previous grant awards we've gotten under the Project Safe Neighborhoods grants.
Perfect. Well, with that, I will open it up to members of the committee. Alderwoman Clark Hubbard.
No questions, thank you.
Alderwoman Velazquez.
No questions, thank you.
Alderwoman Saunier.
No questions, thank you.
Alderman Aldridge.
Just one quick one. When you had said to upgrade technology as far as sound, was that ShotSpotter sound something you said?
Yes, the acoustic gunshot detection or sound thinking. Yes, it's the continued renewal of that. I think to the tune of the 130,000. I think it's around 4,000 of that. So to continue with the renewal of it.
Gotcha. No questions.
Great.
Okay, looks like Alderwoman Saunier has an additional question. Please proceed.
I did read the bill. It's pretty straightforward. I just wondered, is there a place I can go? This is actually my first time of hearing about the program. Is there a place where I can go to find out about like previous expenditures? Or I was just curious about maybe the difference in the funding amounts between previous years and these years, or anything that like reports on the impact or outcomes of these. No problem with this bill. I just seen it for the first
Yeah,
time.
we have some of that information. I think if either Sergeant Silva or Ms. Milberg want to come up about when we first applied and how much we've received on the program.
Thank you.
Alderwoman, I'm Sergeant Silva with St. Louis Police Department, and I have I received a broke down of all the costs here. I'll be more than happy to share that. Like
Okay, yes. And then
I'm sorry, could you repeat your name? Did you
Marcos,
state it?
Marcos, Marcos, and last name is Silva, Silva.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything further, Alderwoman? Okay.
Great, thank you.
So just a couple things to go over real quick. So these are grant funds, so these aren't funds that we're not allocating tax money
It is correct.
to.
There are grant dollars on the table you apply for, and if you don't apply for, you don't get them.
And so to turn this down would be essentially turning down free money at this point.
Correct.
All right. Please add me as a co-sponsor.
Great.
And with that, I don't have any further questions. It doesn't sound like members of the committee do.
Other than if we can make a quick note, I know the Alderwoman 10th also wanted to be a co-sponsor, Ms. Clerk. Thank you.
Yes, she was added previously.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Then I'll recognize you to close.
Great. Nothing further, colleagues. Appreciate your time today. I renew my motion.
All right. At this point, I'll entertain a motion to pass Board Bill Number 106 out of committee with a due pass recommendation.
So moved.
Previous row.
Hearing no objection to previous roll, we've passed Board Bill Number 106 out of committee with a due pass recommendation.
Thank you all.
All right. We have no resolutions for review. We have no committee discussion. Do we have any written testimony related to 105 or 106, Madam Clerk? Madam Clerk, did we have any written testimony related to 105 or 106?
We have none.
All right. With that, I will entertain a motion to excuse Alderwoman Keys for necessary absence.
Second.
All right, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, and members of the public who are here on the mass, if anyone came late, I did acknowledge the fact that the Board Bill number 2 was removed from the agenda today at the request of the sponsor, but members of this committee will stick around after this hearing to discuss it with you, certainly. And with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We stand adjourned.